We're in the cockpit.
We're in the cockpit. Welcome to Food for Thought.
Food for Thought. This is our first podcast. We're trying to do something different.
Yeah, we're trying to generate some interest in some topics that we think are pretty significant and important. And Brandy and I have known each other for 20-some years now.
Long time.
And the past, I don't know, 6 months or so, Brandy's been coming to the store on Friday evenings after he's done with his job, and been basically trying to solve problems of the world, so to speak. You know, having those discussions about everything from racism to abortion to gun control, tonight's topic. So we thought we would maybe formalize this a little bit and take it from the front counter to the cockpit. And
we're in the cockpit, son.
And we wrote out a mission statement. You'll see it up here behind us. I hope you can see the screen. And the screen will change as we're going through this, but we'd like to read the mission statement to you.
So to start off, the Food for Thought mission statement is to provide important information concerning significant and fundamental cultural issues in which the quest for
life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness could be at stake or impacted if those issues are affected
by ways or factors involved in change, negligence, or a general lack of understanding or knowledge thereof.
And I think that last phrase there, the general lack of understanding or knowledge thereof, is part of what we really seriously what we would like to accomplish with what we're doing here. And that is giving you food for thought. Talk about things and mentioning facts and figures and issues that are going to make all of us think a little bit, maybe, and maybe that thinking about it will lead to action.
Yeah. You don't have to agree, but just think outside the box a little. Just think a little differently. Try to look at it from a different person's perspective and stuff like that. So that's
absolutely.
So that's what we're trying to do.
Well, who are we?
As I said,
as I said, Brandy and I have known each other for over 20 years, and we have pretty different backgrounds, and we come from different walks of life. And so I'd like Brandy to kind of go over who he is and his walk of life. And
my name is Brandy Gilliam, 48. I'm a hip hop artist, part of the P.O.B.U.M.S collective. I also do community work, and I grew up in Aurora. I grew up in Eastwood, Indian Trail, Kane Street. Yeah, so I've seen things with guns and like the aftermath and funerals and stuff like that. And I believe you should have the right to protect yourself and stuff like that. But also there comes a time where we have to have some like responsibility, and like I seen when like there's no like accountability up on the streets for the guns, and how it can and has destroyed whole families and whole neighborhoods and stuff like that. So that's where I'm coming from. We just need some accountability when it comes to handling these things, because I mean, like, there's no coming back from that, you know. So I think that's where I'm at.
My name is Steve Warrenfeltz, and I have a very different upbringing than Brandy. I went to 13 schools by the time I was a freshman in high school. My dad was a 20-year Army. He served in the Army for 20 years. So I'm a military brat and grew up on Army bases around the United States, and I was born in Europe, lived in Europe as a kid. And when I was young, about 10 years old, and living on Fort Huachuca, Arizona Army base, I joined the junior NRA at the encouragement of my father. He wanted me to learn how to handle a gun and not be afraid of a gun, because he was hoping that I would grow up to be a hunting buddy of his, and that was why my dad personally owned guns. Besides being in the Army and being issued one, he owned guns because he grew up on a farm in the foothills of the Allegheny Mountains in West Virginia, and hunting was a big thing. It was like we played baseball and basketball and football. Those kids hunted. So I'm coming from a different background, and I also believe in gun control, but I also believe in the right to own a gun and have a gun. And but we certainly have issues surrounding the overall control of that. So that's who we are. And why do we care? We care because we have family, we have kids, we have people we love, and
it affects everybody, you know.
And it really does.
It affects everybody. About to jump right in the pool right here. The future topics of the show. Steve, you want to go ahead and...
Well, yeah, we, like I said earlier, Brandy and I, and some others that come to the store, and for the time being, those names will remain unmentioned. We talk about a variety of things, and so we're thinking that in future casts, we're going to talk about racism, and talk about global warming, and talk about a whole bunch of things. And Brandy and I would really love to hear what it is that you guys think that it would be good to research, uncover the facts, talk about them, and present them to the listening audience. So tonight, though, we're going to talk about guns, and we've entitled the episode, so to speak, "Have Gun Will Travel."
Have Gun Will Travel.
And as you will find out later, we're going to do a part 2 to all of this. So, first of all, though, I thought we would, Brandy and I thought that it would be nice to kind of cover the Second Amendment, because that is kind of the foundation of what a lot of the disagreement, disputes, confusion, questions all come about. So we thought we would just reread the Second Amendment here.
Now, the Second Amendment, this is what it says when it talks about bearing arms, or the right to bear arms. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Well, as you look at that, there's really two distinct statements that are kind of melded together in that single sentence. And it says, first of all, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. And a militia is something that is born in that state. It's put together by the people of that state. It is not necessarily, how do you say it, a federally put together army.
It's at the state level.
State level, right.
And the second part of that, okay, you already read. So the second part of the second,
the operative clause down
operative clause.
Yeah.
A well-regulated militia. Nope, you already read that, right?
Yep.
So the second part is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Yeah. So what they're doing is they're raising kind of a question in some people's minds, and I have to admit that when I reread this a few times recently, I get where there is a little kind of maybe, I don't know, misleading. So you have to kind of know why our forefathers said what they said and what they meant by that. And I'm not sure that it really comes clear in this. So in any case, does the Second Amendment protect a right to keep and bear arms only when reasonably connected with militia?
Or does the Second Amendment also protect the freestanding right to keep and bear arms? Now, when I kind of researched this. It said the reason, it was two things I read. One was like they put this up in here because of the British, that each household, each state, each citizen of that state should be able to bear arms to like protect their town or village or whatever. But also, I read that the second part of the Second Amendment was put in there because they wanted at the state level to if they had an issue with slaves or slavery, like that was put in so they can take care of the slaves too. So it was like, wow. So it was like two. So yeah. So like a lot of people think that second part is saying you got the right to bear arms, but the right to bear arms was only to keep people in prison and stuff like that. But then they say you have the right to bear arms because of the British, and like this is why like this came about. So there's a lot of stuff in there.
So I guess a major question here is, when can the government limit the individual right to possess guns and other firearms, and when can't it? And I don't know that the answer is there in the Second Amendment.
So you don't think that the government should have the right to?
No, I'm not saying that I don't think they don't have the right. I'm saying that it's not stated there in the Second Amendment that they have that right. Or is it?
Dun, dun, dun.
And that's where I would like some input from folks and people maybe a little more scholarly than me. So, yeah. So now we're going to present some information that we've uncovered in doing research about the topic for tonight, and share that with you. And these are some things that I was really unaware of, quite frankly. I didn't know how many people owned guns, what the estimate of how many Americans own guns, but when surveyed,
Well, yeah, just one thing. Like, what Steve is about to present is facts. It's not an argument or debate. It's just straight facts, and you can look this up yourself, because a lot of time when people get facts, people want to argue about the facts, but this is just facts that we uncovered and stuff like that.
So 3 in 10 U.S. adults apparently own a gun, and 3 in 10 means approximately 200 million adults. So I'm seeing about 60 million people, 45 to 60 million people. I don't know, but it's right around that number. Call it 50. So 50 million adults in America own a gun. Those are the ones that own, and it's registered and known. And there are certainly
those who don't register.
Correct. Obtain the guns illegally. And so the people were also surveyed, and the question was raised, why do they own guns?
Personal protection. Everybody wants to protect themselves.
Yeah, and I suppose I'm not surprised that that's the leading question. The further question is protection against what?
Some people might live in a bad neighborhood. You might be a woman that has to walk to work or ride a bike to work. You might be alone at night, get off late. You might want to protect yourself. Or some people get guns because they feel that they have to protect themselves from the government and stuff like that. And then some people get guns because they got to protect themselves from their neighbors, So it's like, I don't know if everybody should have guns. I don't know.
So when the people were polled and asked the question, is gun violence a perceived problem in America? or they were asked to give at the top of their list, make a list of the things that were problems in America. This up here on the screen is how it came out. The number one was affordable health care was of major concern. 56% of that, of the people polled, put that down as a problem in America.
Number two was the federal budget deficit, with 49% of people said that's at the top of the list of the things that they worry about in America.
Violent crime was next at 48%.
Illegal immigration at 48% also.
And gun violence brought up the trifecta there with violence, crime, illegal immigration, gun violence at 48%. So it's in the top three, if you will, of perceived problems in America.
The next one is, should we have stricter gun laws? 53% of Americans say yes. This is a decline from 2019. You want to go into that?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that there is a decline in 2019, and that was the year right before the pandemic, right? The pandemic started in 2020, the COVID outbreak in March of 2020. And so 2019 was actually a pretty good, prosperous year. Stock market was doing very well. Businesses were doing well. Things seemed to be better. And as you'll see in another chart that we're going to show you, violence was actually down a little bit in 2019, holding steady, if you will. And then that changed with 2020. But still, 53% of Americans say that yes, should we have stricter laws? It's, the other side is 47% apparently say or feel differently. And so it's a 50-50 situation here.
We have a question. Somebody says, because it's your God-given right to bear arms. Some people believe that to the T. In 2020, gun-related deaths, 45,222 gun-related deaths, and they're broken down by suicide, murder, and law enforcement and other.
And that's here in America. Globally, there were 180,000 deaths. So we represent roughly about 1/4 of the deaths by guns on the planet Earth. And what I was really surprised by was the fact that suicide is half of that. I would have thought otherwise, but I would have thought that murder would have been higher than suicide, but murder is less. It's 43%. And then another surprising stat is law enforcement, 611 deaths. It's, I don't know what percentage that is, 1.2% or something like that. Or, I don't know, I'm not doing the math right, but it's really certainly very small. There, sorry, didn't put that up there, but that's the breakout of the deaths by guns in 2020. So the slide there shows that gun suicide and gun murder rates have increased in recent years, but they are a lot lower than they were in the past. So from 1980 to 1990, the rate of death by suicide remained pretty steady, and by just murder kind of peaked in, I think it was 1970 something, and then again back in the 80s, and then it dipped down, and then it rose again in the early 90s, and then it dipped down, and now it's rising again as we approach 2022. These stats go through 2020, and they're estimated for 2021, and they're estimated for half of 2022 right now, but And you'll see on the next slide, actually there's a little dip in 2022. The first half of 2022 is showing a drop from what it was last year. The numbers, though, are estimated, and the interesting thing there, Brandy and I talked about, is that it's going down while the perception is that it's worse than it's ever been. And I think because of some pretty high-profile mass murders that have taken place, and the publicity and the media coverage of them. And I'm not saying that the media coverage is wrong or right or adequate or not or whatever. I'm just saying that the media coverage has been there, and it's made me feel, I personally felt that it's really gotten out of whack, and I was surprised to see that the estimated numbers are showing a decline.
Hard to swallow.
And this next chart is just kind of interesting, showing the breakout of the gun death rates in 2020 by state. And you can see the Central South is very high on a per capita basis, and also Montana and Wyoming. I don't understand if there's a correlation there to anything, Brandy.
Cowboys. I don't know.
I don't know.
The next slide. What types of guns were involved in 2020 murders? Handguns were involved 59% of the time. Rifles were involved 3% of the time. And all other types not stated, I don't know what that even means, were involved 38% of the time.
Yeah, the shocker, especially in light of what has happened this year, is that rifles and assault weapons represented 3%. And I would have thought much higher. Just if somebody were to ask me to guess, I would say, I don't know, 15, 20, 25% of the time, as opposed to 3. But that's what it was, apparently. So there's some questions here that need to be answered, and we're not here necessarily to provide those answers. We'd like to hear what people have to say and think, and not necessarily right this second, but if you want to right this second, that's great. But think about maybe some of the information that we have provided, and come back at us and let us know what you think and what the answers to the following questions might be.
First question is, are our gun regulations strict enough?
Number 2, are we employing the best initiatives to reduce gun violence?
Number 3, are we doing all we can to prevent gun violence?
Number 2 and 3 are kind of
like the same.
Yeah, somewhat redundant, but one is questioning what we're doing. I mean, number 2 there, are we employing the best initiatives, is questioning, are we doing what we're doing, or are they the best things that we can be doing? Yeah, and the last question is, are we doing everything we can possibly do to prevent gun violence? So we're going to come back in a couple weeks and kind of review what we talked about tonight, and then provide some information regarding responses to what we talked about tonight. And so we'll be back at you later.
And remember, it's live, and we also have a live studio audience. So the next time you can even come here, you can come here and even ask your questions live. So we appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah, we would love to see you here and be a part of the whole discussion and presentation. And love to see you here. So thank you. If you're out there listening, and please provide us with some feedback. Love to hear from you.
All right, this is Food for Thought. This is Steve and Brandy. Out here, we in the cockpit, son. We did the first show with no boycotts.
We didn't quit.
We didn't quit. All right, peace.